Today we're going to have a look at adding Navaids to the Bulldog aircraft in 3 simulators. Because of the addition of an autopilot and a GPS, the Bulldog has now made it to position 10 in the top 20 GA aircraft. The prepared version comes from BlackBox and will set you back about €20. The Microsoft version also comes from BlackBox and costs about €25. The Xbox version is by Origami Studios and costs about £25. We'll be doing our flights from Lydd, which is on the south coast of the UK, and we'll set up a GPS to Shoreham, a VOR to the Lydd VOR, which is just about 3 miles north, and we'll use the Lydd NDB. The P3D mod involves an adjustment to the panel config and the aircraft config of the Bulldog aircraft. I've included a digital copy in the notes below. You can then use the keys Shift 3 and Shift 4 to bring up the instruments onto your screen. I prefer to use the Reality XP GTN 750, so I'll bring that up onto my screen. With this instrument, it's much easier to input flight plans and navigation data. You can get it from Reality XP for about $50. We have to manually set up the Lydd VOR on the Nav1 radio. The code for the mod can also be obtained from this BlackBox Simulation Forum website. When all the instruments are set up properly, we head off in a northerly direction and get ready to engage the autopilot. As we approach 1,000 feet, we turn on the autopilot and engage the altitude hold. The vertical speed has to be positive, so we hit the up button in order to get rid of the negative number. Once we're stable, we confirm on the 750 that we're in V-lock. We then hit the nav button on the autopilot and turn the OBS on the VOR instrument until we see the course deviation indicator appear. The aircraft will now automatically turn left in order to pick up the radial from the lid VOR. As the CDI starts to slip away from the centre, we tweak the OBS wheel in order to maintain that CDI in the centre of the instrument. As we overfly the VOR station, we turn off the autopilot and bring the aircraft back on a southerly heading. We then turn the autopilot back on and change the 750 from VLOG to GPS. When we hit the nav button on the autopilot, the aircraft will now swing around to pick up the magenta line of the GPS flight plan. The Microsoft Bulldog already has a GPS included, so we just have to set up some keys in order to control the autopilot. I use an Xbox controller to provide some extra keys, and I programmed the Y button to be the autopilot on, and then these other combinations of right button plus A, right button plus B, etc. to toggle the GPS and do all the other good things. Once the flight plan is set up in the GPS and we've programmed nav1 for the lid VOR, we're ready to go. I hit the Y button to turn on the autopilot, then hit the key combination to do an altitude hold. Once we're steady on that, I turn on nav1 with another key combination, and the aircraft will then turn left towards the lid VOR. Once again, we need to tweak the OBS wheel on the VOR instrument in order to keep the CDI needle centered in the instrument. The aircraft will then automatically steer towards the VOR station. Once we're past the VOR station, we hit the key combination to toggle the GPS to drive nav1. This will then cause the aircraft to intersect the magenta line in the GPS and take us, following our flight plan, to our destination, which is Shoreham. In X-Plane we have to add a plug-in which will install a universal autopilot into the aircraft. On the comm nav radio, notice the little levers at the base of the wheels. These must be turned on in order to activate the instrument. Very important. With the X-Plane default map, you can click on a VOR and auto-tune your nav1 to the frequency of the VOR. Similarly, you can go to an NDB, click on that and auto-tune your ADF to that NDB frequency. Very handy. There is no default GPS in this model, so I've added the Reality XP Garmin GTN 750 in order to give that functionality. Notice also to the right there that this aircraft does have an NDB instrument, so it can guide you to any NDB that you program into your instruments. Notice under the bottom left of the GPS there is a very small letter A, and when you click on that it will bring up the universal autopilot. Now it's a bit tricky but doable. Notice the NDB radio mast at our 11 o'clock, and then look at the NDB instrument over on the right of the cockpit, and you'll see the yellow arrow tracking towards the NDB. So that confirms that the instrument is working okay. When we get to 1,000 feet, we turn on the autopilot by clicking on AP, and then turn on the altitude hold, hitting Alt, and we should see the aircraft steady at its height. We then turn on the nav button, NAV, making sure that our GPS is in V-lock mode, and we should see the aircraft turn to the left to follow the VOR. Once again we have to tweak the OBS wheel on the VOR instrument to center the needle, the course deviation indicator. But this time we also have to tweak in the autopilot the heading direction, just to give a bit more oomph to the aircraft turning. So you have to hold over the where it says heading 349 or wherever it is, and hold your mouse cursor over that and then turn the wheel, and that will turn the indicated direction. And you have to estimate where the VOR is in relation to yourself, and then put the relative heading into the autopilot. And if you keep tweaking it, keep tweaking the OBS and the relative heading, eventually the aircraft will sort itself out and steer towards the VOR. You're not actually telling the aircraft to go on a autopilot heading mode. You're sort of tweaking the nav mode to go in the desired heading. So it's not actually an autopilot heading mode, it's a nav mode with a bit of assistance. A bit strange, but that's the way it works. When we overfly the VOR station, we briefly turn off the autopilot, turn our GPS onto GPS mode from V-lock, turn the autopilot back on and go into nav mode, and the aircraft will then follow the GPS flight plan, the magenta line, down to our destination at shore. So it does work, a little bit fiddly, but certainly better than not having autopilot functionality. So I hope you like the video. Please subscribe and have a look at my other videos as well. Bye for now.